Have you hit the button?
Yeah, I hit the button. All right, welcome to episode number 240 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on June the 2nd, 2024. And just for Kyle, it is 2 minutes past. My name's Eric, host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and of course, computer geek. As a first responder, witness an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario, and I'm home this time. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
Pierre.
And I think Pierre is frozen.
No, he's moving around.
No, I'm good. I got the YouTube I had open, started playing in the background. There was a delay, and I was just like, it's tripping me out. It's all good. My name's Pierre. Yeah. My name's Pierre. I'm a tactical beard owner, base t-shirt making guy, government critique, and the reason we hit the explicit button.
It's a true story.
And if you want to support the show, buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt right here. And the tactical Velcro patch at prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help cover our podcast costs.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and submit a review wherever you found us. We want your feedback, even if it's bad. We also invite you to reach out to us and tell us about something you learned this week. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
Made it through the whole thing this time.
Fucking right.
And there's the explicit button. All right, so we've got some security
that has to be a
content for
record.
you
It
in
was
this
less
episode.
than 2 minutes.
I don't know. I think the record's a minute something.
Yeah, I've said it way earlier before.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. All right, we're going to start off with some recent news articles. We'll update you on what we've done for our personal preps since the last episode. We're going to get into the main topic. We're talking about doomstead security tonight. So let's move into the news. So I've got an article here from CTV in Winnipeg, and it just talks about a blockade briefly stopping the Pride Parade in downtown Winnipeg. And despite your views on what they're parading about or celebrating and all of that, I wanted to just highlight this as something that can all of a sudden take just an event out in the general public and completely spin it around, right? So there's people there that support this movement, that are celebrating and having a good time, and all of a sudden a blockade comes in, and now your scenario has gone from, a celebratory type of event to a protest with no notice, no kind of heads up. You have no idea what's going to happen. So just it doesn't look like anybody got hurt or anything crazy happened in this scenario, but there could be some pretty big tensions during it. And if one little spark goes off, and now all of a sudden it goes from a peaceful protest that's shut down and parade for a bit into a little bit more violence, you just never know. So I wanted to kind of highlight that for people. It's just a reminder to keep your head on a swivel and always be prepared if you're out and about for unknown things to pop up and happen, because it seems to be happening more and more often these days.
So was this intentional, or was it just like an unintentional way to practice edging?
I think we're just going to leave that one alone. All right, Jeff.
Yeah. So, and it's funny. I'll do a segue into my articles here. So, I was at a preppers kind of meet thing, and I'll mention that a little bit later. And I got talking with a lady there, new prepper, she was kind of just taking ideas and things, and we got onto the topic of water. And I was basically telling her, don't concentrate so much on the food. You need to concentrate more on the water. You have to have food, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to survive to have your food if you don't have water. And, she was like, well, I live in the city. I just flick my tap on and the water comes on. And I talked about, well, what happens if you turn the tap, it doesn't come on, or you turn it on, it comes out a funny color, it's got a bad smell, whatever, and talked about things like that. And funny, I get home last night, and I'm popping on and browsing the news, and there is Atlanta, Georgia, a fairly major metropolis that had 2 separate major water main breaks within hours of each other. And basically, most of the city had no water for probably a couple of days. Some areas, this happened Friday mid-afternoon, and there are still some areas that don't have water yet. So, of course, the media is there and they're interviewing everybody, and they're all complaining that they don't have water and they don't have. So, again, be prepared. Have your extra water. I'm sure all of us here, myself, Eric, Pierre, a lot of the listeners, if you lost water for 2 or 3 days, you'd be fine. But again, those people, they didn't. They have no way to have water. So it was just kind of a segue that went into that. It was pretty interesting.
That's a good point. It's water is kind of key, right? You need that along with food. You're not wrong there, but having that reliance on the city water system, it's very easy to get comfortable with it just flipping the tap on and there it is. But yeah, what if, right? You have there's any other news articles, or the 2 in here related to the same thing, I guess, eh?
Yeah, they're related to the same thing.
Awesome. All right, well, let's move on to what we've done lately for preps then. We kick off with Jeff.
I did some fuel rotation. I did my monthly generator tests. And as I just mentioned, I attended a seminar on herbalism, basically plants and what plants can do for your health and all that kind of stuff. It was really, really, really interesting. The presenter clearly knew exactly, had his crap together, and he was quite experienced in it, and knew, he just basically touched on, wound care. That was a big one. Wound care. It was pretty interesting. Terry, who bailed on us tonight, was there, so I got to meet Terry, and he said some nice things about me after I paid him. So everything went well there.
So Ford made it there?
The Ford made it there, believe it or not.
It was mostly downhill travel.
Right. That's why he's not here tonight, because it didn't make it back home.
Yeah, he had to go uphill to get back home. Yeah.
Yeah. That presenter, they're going to be at the annual Preppers meet as well, Jeff,
Yes, he is. Dan Flowers is his name.
So fitting.
He's going to be there for the very appropriate, as he said right off the hop of his presentation. Very appropriate last name for somebody dealing in herbalism. So he's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of people there, but he's going to be there, and I'm looking forward to picking his brain some more.
Yeah, he's been there for as long as I can remember at the Preppers meet. Puts on a fantastic presentation.
Yep.
All right, for myself, the past week has been a whirlwind of work plus work, which equals work, and unfortunately, there was no real time to do anything preparedness wise this week. It happens from time to time. I know I get an F grade for this week.
Yeah. Okay. As for myself, a bunch of work, a few late days, lots and lots going on with work. Fuel rotation. Figured I'd start on the bandwagon of testing the generator before the storm happens. Especially since I had to take it from one shed and put it in the new shed. Trying to get rid of the old one so we can get the camper here and start organizing the Doomstead a bit better. I'm pretty sure I made most of my neighbors not want to come knock on my door. I was left unsupervised for like 6 hours in the backyard drinking and playing music from when I was a kid. And the volume went pretty high. So I was like, yeah, it was good. And then just
But you're not telling them the real reason why they wouldn't come knock on your door.
Yeah.
Because you hung your clothes on the fence, right?
Yeah, but there is no fence. It was just on the ground.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah. So
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
just getting we got some racking up in the new shed, and then just tidying up, getting stuff organized, making sure the labels that are on the bin are actually what's in there.
That's
Getting
no
ready
fun.
to, getting ready to, figure out, okay, where's going to be the closest bins we want to keep in case something happens and we need to grab them. Probably store some of our winter stuff in the far back and then swap them out in the spring and fall and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, planning all that out and having some drinks by myself in the backyard because there was nobody around and blasting some music. So it was a good old time of me time. So it was good.
Very nice. Very nice. And no peopling required, so that's good.
Yes.
All right. Well, with that, let's move into the main topic. So this evening's topic, we have touched on this in the past, but we wanted to come back and revisit it again, mainly because it was mentioned in the Discord in the topic ideas list. So we figured we'd make a new episode on it. We touched on it a long time ago now, but we're going to get into just securing the Doomstead. So basically, just some security ideas that you can put in place for your home, your apartment, wherever it is that your primary residence is, because that's probably where majority of us plan on being should there be a shit hit the fan situation or any kind of emergency type of situation. Chances are you're either going to be at home when it happens or you're going to be trying to get back home if you're not at home. So securing your location, your main location is important, and you can take these ideas and move them out to another location as well. If your main residence isn't where you're going to be planning on being, if a major event happens and it's going to be elsewhere, like I don't know, cabin in the woods or something like that, you can certainly take these ideas and kind of mold them to your specific scenario. But we're going to be focusing mainly on securing your main residence and kind of where most people are going to end up hanging out in a major event. So as usual, we'll leave it open to all the panelists to jump in and throw in their 2 cents as you see fit. But I'll kind of kick it off with a couple of points here and just talk about the importance of home security. It's obviously it's kind of a critical thing to look after. Most of your preps, most of your gear, most of your equipment is going to be stored at your main residence. So I know some of you will be saying, no, it's not actually at the main residence. I put it somewhere else. I hide it along different areas. That's fine as well. But for most people, it's going to be stored somewhere easy to access, somewhere easy for you to get at, and that's most likely going to be your primary residence. So if you've got a bunch of stuff, other people in a bad situation, or unfortunately, even when times are good, sometimes people just want your stuff. So being able to secure it and take some action to make it more difficult for that to happen is usually the best way to go. Because let's not kid ourselves, the bad guys are usually lazy, and if you make them work for it, they're going to go elsewhere. So focusing on that and just making sure that everything is secured, I think is a pretty important part of preparedness. Not always something that you think about, right? You think about your food, you think about your water, you think about your bug out bag or your get home bag or whatever kind of bag that we talked about on the last episode there. But not everybody thinks about securing those things and making sure they don't walk away or somebody else takes advantage of it being there and taking it. And on top of that, it's not only the things, right? It's protecting family members and friends and the people that are within that that residence, right? It's maybe not the people. I know, Pierre, you don't people.
Yeah, I'm like, let's use people and friends very loosely here.
Okay,
family not so much. But.
Okay, so your immediate close family that you choose to reside with on a daily basis, I would assume, are somewhat important to you. So you might want to protect those people. Extended family, roll the dice. Up to you and your certain family situation.
100%.
Again, the whole security thing. While times are good, it's important. While times are bad, even more so important. Because that's when you get the people that maybe wouldn't necessarily be eyeing up your stuff, starting to get a little bit desperate, and now they're looking for who is in a good position and maybe trying to take advantage of that. But I think it applies in both scenarios because, well, I think Pierre would agree with me. People are shitty.
Yes.
And since you've opened up the doors for the explicit button, figured I'd just walk right through.
Welcome.
Thank you. So we kind of touched on how it kind of fits into the role of preparedness, right? It's important to make sure that your stuff's secured and looked after and kind of squared away. But let's get into kind of some of the things that you can look at in your home. Fairly simple to do. This one right off the hop, I know somewhere Alan's ears are burning because this was one that he would go on and on and on about. Your doors, just reinforcing your doors. Actually, I'm pretty sure he went off on a tangent when we touched on this episode a couple of years ago about this.
I'm pretty sure.
Reinforcing your door frames, putting some good deadbolts in, some strike plates, some braces or bars if you really want to go hardcore about it. All fairly simple things to do, things that you might look past and not really focus on if you're doing a type of a security assessment, but fairly simple to put in place. Deadbolts, again, nothing too crazy. Was that Jeff?
Yeah, a friend of mine had an attempt break and enter, but they didn't get in mainly because he, like you said, he'd reinforced the door frames. His door it wasn't steel, but it was steel coated, like it had, I guess, metal or wood or something inside, but it had metal on the outside. He had good quality deadbolts, and he put people have seen it on YouTube and everywhere. They say the screws that they give you for your striker plates, take them out and stick long ones in there. It's going to be much more difficult to break the door frame. And so, he came home one day and realized something was off and he couldn't figure out what it was, and went around to his back door, and the door was bent. His frame was cracked, but wasn't compromised. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was sort of compromised, but they weren't able to gain entry. They literally bent the deadbolt, but they didn't get in. And there was probably at least a good half a dozen boot prints on the door. So, that protected him.
Yep. And for sure, like the message you just had up, longer screws, 1 by 1, even your door hinges. They normally come with 1-inch screws. Take them out 1 by 1, put some good 2.5, 3.5, whatever you got. If you're doing any renos, that would be ideal. If you're taking some paneling down, doing some new drywall, doing whatever, see your door frame, hey, can you grab another 2x4, reinforce it, and then get those screws through all that. That will make a world of difference. I'm not saying go around and cut out all the drywall, but I mean, if you're already doing some sort of drywall or any type of repair where you can get at least access to the inside of the house of that frame and say, hey, can you put a few chunks of 2x4 even here and there, not necessarily reframe the whole door itself, will do a world of difference. But taking out every single one of those screws and getting, I would say 2.5 at bare minimum, but 3.5-inch screws, putting them in, making sure they're solid, will definitely help deter people.
Yeah. Like I said, it's all about just making it more difficult. If someone's decided to target your residence, they're going to try, right? If you can make it incredibly difficult for them, they are going to move on. A, because they're probably going to be drawing attention to themselves by causing a racket, by trying to kick the door in. And B, they're going to get tired and they're going to want to move on, because if they can't get through that door, on to the next, right? I see a couple of comments here in the live chat talking about dogs. And I was going to mention that, but you know what? I'll just get into it now. Dogs, 100%. We actually had a possible break in here years ago now. And the only reason why the guy didn't go through our front door and went through the neighbors instead is because we had a big German Shepherd on the other side of the door. Never went through both houses on either side of us, broken into. Ours, not touched, because there's that German Shepherd on the other side of the door. Little did the guy know, how do you come in the door? The dog probably would have just, licked him to death.
Licked him and humped his leg.
Yep. Sounds mean on that side, the other side of the door, though. Yeah. But like I said, went through both houses on either side of us, never touched our place. Because again, that was going to be difficult for the person, right? So they just moved on to the next.
Yeah. And I'll say the obvious, but don't buy a dog just as security. That is
Right.
going to be a part of the family. You're going to have to take care of it.
Yes.
There is a financial part of it and everything. But if it's something like I have 2 dogs, they're both they're mastiffs. I mean, the male is 180 pounds, the female is about 165. They're monsters, friendliest things ever. But I mean, I've had one of those dogs kind of like I was walking in the shadows coming back, and Mel was like, "Oh, what's that over there?" And he started running at me, and I was like, "I know this dog. I know this dog will never put his teeth on my skin." And I almost crapped myself. And I'm just like, the bigger, the better, the intimidating. I mean, if you got a Chihuahua and I'm wearing like rubber boots, I'm not worried. But make sure if you do go that route that you get it young, introduce it to your kids. If you've got kids, make sure it's good with everything, because you don't want everything. If someone, something happens and people are breaking into houses, you don't want to have the dog cooped up in the house trying to be safe, and dog gets paranoid, and now the dog, you got to worry about the dog, and now you got to separate the dog from everybody. So, it's got to be a good family member. It's got to be the right fit, and hopefully everything goes without a hitch there. But there are many scenarios where that didn't happen.
Yes, please be a responsible dog or pet owner. Don't just get the dog because you wanted to scare people away from your house.
Yes.
And Paul mentioned in the live chat that I didn't think of till he mentioned it. He says windows are bad for doors. The windows get smashed. They reach in and turn knobs.
Yep.
I'll publicly say it. I have deadbolts that are keyed on the inside. They're an alloy. They're keyed on the inside. So I can have them either regular open and close, and then I just turn the key and they're locked. And it's locked on the inside as well as the outside. So stick your hand through the window all you want. You're not going to be able to turn the deadbolt.
But, and I mean, have you guys seen the price of how much an exterior door costs right now? So if don't go out and just be like, oh, I got a window, so now I got to go buy a new one. I mean, unless that's already part of your plans, but it is something, right? Like, it's nice to have that feature where you can kind of tint it so like you can see who's at the door without having to go up to the door. Like, there's ups and downs, there's pros and cons to both. But I think if you have it, definitely the locks you mentioned, Jeff, like that's phenomenal. It just sucks if you're trying to rush out the door or something, you got to fiddle for keys and probably not wearing pants. So now you got to go find your pants to get the keys, and it just gets complicated.
It does, yes. But touching on windows, that's kind of the next point I was going to get into anyways. And windows on doors, or just windows in general, 100% are a giant security thing, right? Like it's going to be a problem for you because all it is a pane of glass. All you have to do is smash it and you've gained entry, right? It's not rocket science. I think everybody is aware of that, right? Find a rock nearby, bring something with you to smash a window. It could be the window, it could be the side window beside the door, it could be the bathroom window that's beside the door. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever window there is there on the main floor, smash it open and you've gained access to the house, right? So you can obtain security film that can go on the window. It's going to make it harder. It's not going to stop people, right? But again, it's making it a little bit more challenging. So they decide this is probably not the place to go to. Let's go somewhere else, right? So a security film, which is just basically a tint that you put over the window, can kind of help, and it helps in even if it's not someone trying to break in, but like bad weather comes through and a tree hits your place or something, right? It kind of helps with the glass shattering that way. Again, it's not going to stop everything, but it makes it more difficult.
Not unless you go down that route of getting shatterproof windows, which ideally, in a perfect world, I would absolutely have everywhere in my house until you realize what the cost is. Mm-hmm. They are not cheap, but that is definitely something, at least on the main floor, that I would consider if I ever, hey, we got to do windows. Okay, well, let's see how much it is. I know they're about 3-4 times the price of a regular window. So let's say your window's normally, $200. It's about $800 to $1,000. I'm pretty sure most insurances will have kickbacks for that. So if you do replace all your windows to shatterproof or like whatever you want to call it, where someone can't just get a rock or whatever, your insurance will go down. So maybe in the long run, it would offset that cost. But if it is financially feasible, I would say it's definitely something to look into, at least somewhere where, you're back, maybe not the front of your house, especially if you're on a busy street, but if you've got like the side of the house where someone can sneak up in the bush, even if you only do a few of your windows, when that time comes, I think just peace of mind would be nice for that.
and if I'm not mistaken, and somebody can correct me, you can get special security foam. I don't know. I imagine like, oh, wait a minute. He's saying it right there. Yeah, 3M, put it on the windows and it may not prevent the shattering, but it's going to make it much more difficult for them to get in, because now they're going to have to get through the thicker window tint, break the window. And so that may be a much cheaper alternative than the shatter resistant glass.
Yeah. Even on top of that, what I'm considering, depending on the windows and everything, depending the storage you have with all your furniture, is if you've got a couch by a window, is there a way you could put a good piece of plywood, something behind that isn't an eyesore or whatever? And if a scenario happens, you can easily put that over the window from the inside, get some good 2x4s, some good screws. Don't be ashamed to have pieces of wood lying under your bed that, nobody's going to see, behind the couch, behind your dressers or your TV area or whatever. Having just 2x4s and even just lumber that you can screw 3-inch screws into studs. Know where your studs are around the window. They're probably right around where the framing is, to keep everything. So having that somewhere, a bag full of screws and a drill wouldn't take long to board up all your windows. Might have to do some mudding afterwards, but in a scenario that can definitely save you. That's probably one of the cheapest options, especially since plywood came down in price. Get a good 3/4, 1/2-inch pre-cut to all your windows and just tucked up somewhere where nobody's going to see it. It's not going to be an eyesore when you have company come over. Easily accessible inside, and you can definitely board yourself in from that.
That's a good point. You made another good point too when you were talking about securing the windows. You had mentioned at least at minimum the main floor. That's another good point. If you've got a multi-story house, again, people are going to take the path of least resistance. Not saying that they wouldn't come with a ladder and try the second floor, but chances are they're going to try the first path of least resistance section first and try to gain access through a main floor window or main floor door or some other access point, right? So if you're going to focus on the main floor first, try to get that secured, and then if you want to secure up the second floor, absolutely do it. But kind of priority wise, just think about the lazy approach of what somebody would do to try to gain access to your primary residence.
Trying to sneak up on a house with 3 buddies with a 20-foot ladder is probably a lot harder than just getting your buddy to boost you up in a scenario, allegedly.
and just to be on that topic or on that conversation, don't leave a ladder outside leaning against the side of your house. Put it in your garage, put it in your basement,
somewhere.
Put it somewhere. Don't leave it where it's easily accessible. Again, if you're going to make it easy for them, they're going to take advantage of it.
It's true.
We didn't even think about that. You should probably lock down your trampoline too.
Oh yes. Yeah. You shouldn't leave your trampolines out unattended. Nope, it's true.
No, definitely not.
Go ahead.
Well, no, so I was just saying, we're starting to go down a rabbit hole that we probably don't, but your type of roofing. Do you have stainless steel? Do you have shingles? Shingles, you can get pretty good traction with a pair of shoes. In the winter, I don't know about you, but I'm never getting on a fucking steel roof.
I get on a steel roof ever, no matter what no matter what season we're in.
Exactly, right. So we were lucky. We bought the house and they had just done the tin. I'm not a fan of the color, but I love tin roofs way better than shingles, in my opinion. But just knowing that I've got a pretty steep peak to get to the upstairs windows, I'm probably not too worried about someone trying to climb into my upstairs windows from that. But if you're coming up to the point where you need to do your roof, that might be something you want to consider as well. Make it a little harder, structurally sound and everything. And it's really nice when it rains.
Scott's got a good point in the live chat. He mentions patio rocks next to the windows. So, everybody likes to landscape their property and have it look nice. Sometimes you'll use rocks and that kind of thing to accent things. You've now also supplied a tool for a nefarious person to come along and utilize to gain access to your residence through smashing a window. So it's a great point, something to keep an eye out for and think about.
And if you want to have those patio stones, glue them. Getting that heavy duty PL, glue 20 rocks together where you can't get it, so it kind of stays there. That's a very cheap alternative compared to like getting rid of all the rocks, but just going to get that landscaping PL glue and the caulking gun, glue everything down. Definitely also an option if you want to keep the rocks to hide everything else.
Paul has the ultimate solution in the live chat. Just build a house with no windows.
Build a house with no neighbors is way better.
Build a house away from everybody in the middle of nowhere is even better. But we can lead into fencing and gates, because I think we've pretty sure we've beat windows and doors to death here. But fencing and gates, another thing, talking about landscaping, right? You can kind of look at your property and set some gates up and set some fencing up in a way that it accents the property, makes it look nice, because who doesn't want their property looking nice, right? But also it can add to people's inability to get in from, say, the backyard if you fenced off the backyard, right? Or fenced off the front yard, or just making it, again, you're just making it a little bit harder for average person walking down the road, looking at your place going, oh yeah, you know what? Let me try to take something from there. They have to get through a gate, or they have to get through a fence, or they have to take some kind of a path, or you also get to control the way people approach your house, right? So if you put fencing up and you only want them to come up the driveway, and as they're coming up the driveway, now you can put a motion sensor in that alerts you to the fact that, hey, someone's coming up the driveway. Or you only want them to come up a certain way so that they're caught on security cameras you've got on the property, right? You can kind of control people's movements and the way that they gain access to your property, which could be huge for other things, like I said, your motion sensors, your security cameras, just your general overall observations of ways that you can see out of the house. And then that way, somebody's coming. But fencing and gates is pretty important part as well.
I would also add drawbridge, moats, and gators.
Yes. And a horse.
Why?
Because you got to ride it across the drawbridge.
No, you can take any car out of it as long as you built it right.
It's just not.
Or we just thought, it's not the same. Or you just need someone with coconuts behind you.
There we go.
And while those are great ideas, and I think they're excellent deterrents, you may pique the interest of the perpetrator, shall we say, or the criminal, to say, hey, this individual's got all this stuff here. He's gone to all these lengths. What's he got there? What's in there that he doesn't want us to get to? And
good point.
And they may pick
you
out of one to say, there's got to be something there. The guy's put up gates at his driveway. He's done this. He's done that. There's something valuable in there. And
it's a high risk, but they're probably also assuming it's going to be a high reward.
Right. They're probably going to be willing to work a bit harder. You're right.
Yeah.
Great point.
So keep the outside
of fences. Like you could start looking at putting up shrubs or bushes or something more landscapey that doesn't look like a fence. Looks like you're just trying to make the property look nice. And ultimately you are, right? But it also adds that rerouting people and getting them to go a certain way and keeping people out from certain areas without drawing that attention. So that's a good point, Jeff. If you're putting up big attention drawing fences, maybe do it a little bit differently.
Or we've got it in here, and I was gonna let them say it anyways. But if you're planting shrubs or planting whatever, plant something thorny. If they want to get through, hey, no problem. You can come through, but it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
So rose bushes and things like that, or different kind of thorny plants are going to slow them down. Again, I don't think anything's going to stop somebody who's so bound and determined that they're going to do it, but you're gonna make it painful for them.
Yeah, and no one's going to think any different of a rose bush outside of a house. You know, when you start getting into some of those plants, where it's just like, oh, that's weird, and it kind of looks very specific for something, but like, drive anywhere. You can drive down a street and probably like 1 out of every 2 houses has rose bushes somewhere on it. They kind of blend in, and they probably don't use it for that because they like the smell and they like to see the bees or whatever, which you can do the same, but you can also add it as putting it under your windows in close proximity to it, that they have to walk through it before they can get to a window, and they can't. But he doesn't want to stand there and hoist you up through the window because he's got to squat in a bunch of thorns. Not a bad idea.
No, it's true. Yeah, it's all about setting things up that's going to make it difficult, but yeah, mixing it in place where it doesn't look like you're trying to, steer people around or keep them away from certain areas. Certainly works much better than setting up a big fence like we were talking about earlier. It doesn't draw as much attention, which is always good, right? We want to keep that low profile and not stand out versus standing. Unless you want to stand out, you want to build a huge, big, 6-7 foot fence and have at it. Up to you.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So the next thing, and this is probably top of everybody's list, is surveillance systems. And of course, being a nerd, I love this kind of stuff because I can hook it up to the computer. So, cameras, right? You can set up all kinds of cameras. Again, we've touched on the whole, not standing out. Do you want cameras all over that 7-foot fence that you've put along the front of your property? If that's your thing, great, but it's going to draw attention, right? So cameras are a fantastic resource to have. But again, like we mentioned, they kind of make you stand out and will draw some attention as well. And people, they're starting to become more mainstream now. You're seeing them more often on houses, so it's not as big of a kind of a standout as it used to be.
Especially now
at the same time.
And I agree to a point, but I look at it as, I guess from my end of it, it's not a barrier to stop somebody. Right? It's not going to stop them. It's not like you're reinforcing a door, you're doing something, you're putting up a camera. Well, there's lots of ways to get around a camera. Wearing a hoodie, put a mask on, do something like that, right? You're going to catch them in the act or see them doing it in the act, but I personally don't think, and I could be wrong, and I'm wrong a lot, but I don't think that just the fact that they're going to see a camera there is going to be much of a deterrent to them.
No, and I wouldn't putting a camera up as my top priority. It's lower on the list in comparison to everything we've talked about so far, right? Like barricading my windows, locking my doors, getting better hardware, all that I can do for the price of one camera, even the cheap ones. But I
mean, like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're not a good thing. And a lot of people use those Ring doorbell cameras that you can talk through. So if you're talking through it, does that person know that you're really not home? Maybe you just don't want to answer the door, right? So there's good and bad to it, but.
Yeah, it's true, and you can get a bunch of the cameras, not even the doorbell cameras.
I just don't quite see it as that much of a deterrent, to be honest. But
yeah, me neither. But
and you can, like you mentioned, Jeff, the doorbell cameras with the two-way audio. You can get those in cameras that you can place around the house too. So you could use it as kind of a distraction, right? Make it sound like you're in the backyard if you know bad guys come in the front. There's options there, and yeah, it's a nice to have. I agree with you. It's not an absolute need to have thing. It's kind of once you get a few other things under control and figured out that you can put those in as well. If it's your thing, right? Not everybody wants them. My main thing would be make sure you have control of where the recordings are and they're not up in some third party cloud in the middle of nowhere that you don't know about, or they can just disappear on you, and make sure that you've got someone installing them that kind of knows what they're doing. And
and whether that be either yourself or someone else. So if you have video on your property, do you not have to have a sign saying somewhere that's legible saying that this premises is under video surveillance, or is that just a thing?
I don't think there's legislation to it. I think it's just I think it's just, to be honest, I think it's another deterrent thing. You're telling them, hey, you want to come on here, you're going to be on video, and
Yeah. So I'm sure there's nothing illegal about having that sign and not having cameras as well.
Yep.
It could also be a very cheap alternative. But I had just remember hearing that's like, you have to have a beware of dog sign, but if your dog does something, you're still responsible. So I'm like, it's kind of like that catch-22 where I wasn't sure if that also applied to having surveillance or video cameras anywhere on your property, that you kind of have to have it on the door or somewhere visible, that if they come on, and then even though we're a one-party consenting recording province.
There are probably all kinds of laws that you need to brush up on and be aware of, especially things like privacy laws. There's things I would focus on if you're capturing, say, the neighbor's property and not your property, that kind of thing. Yeah, if you're going to put cameras up, make sure you brush up on your privacy laws and your own like town or city bylaws as well, because some have specific bylaws about security cameras. So that kind of thing. Before you do any of this kind of stuff that we're talking about, just make sure that you check up with your local codes and local bylaws and all that kind of stuff to make sure you're on the up and up, because we would hate to see you do it and then get charged and say, oh, well, a podcast said do it. It's not how it works.
So, I mean, we will gladly love to hear that feedback.
Yeah. And Kyle made a
pepperpodcast.ca.
Yeah, saying, didn't a Canadian police force say security cameras are not good and could be used against the homeowner? Might be wrong if he's an American. I vaguely recall something being mentioned about that, and I think it was around, like Eric said, is it capturing something that, is it on catching your neighbors doing something or something like that? Or maybe, as stupid as this sounds, and it pains me greatly to say this, that they may be saying, well, you know what? Maybe that guy got caught on your camera, but if you post his picture all over the internet and defame him, hey, we're going to, you can't do that, which is a crock of crap. But
that was Montreal.
Is it?
Specifically that I remember. I want to say it was at least Quebec. I want to say Montreal police. So people were posting pictures of porch pirates stealing stuff or whatever, and they came back and said that's an intrusion of their privacy because technically they haven't been convicted of it, even though it's like this would be what it was. And it was something along those lines. So I don't know if specifically that's what he's talking about, but that was a Canadian thing where, people were posting pictures just being like, look, someone stole something, and they posted a few pictures saying, has anybody seen this or whatever? And they came back and said that, that could be an invasion of his privacy because technically he hasn't been convicted of stealing anything from your property yet. So, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying like that's the wording they used, and it was that. So, I have so many questions about the tech stuff, not like putting screws in doors.
Well, how about we move into alarm systems? So we've gone from security cameras to alarm systems, and that's another topic that's up for good debate. Some people will swear by them. Some people think they're absolute garbage. You know what? If it's something that's going to draw a lot of attention to your place because somebody has smashed a window, that's probably going to scare them away. Yeah, maybe not. Some people are they know how to fight through that, and they know it's not going to be a big deal. We can find where the speaker is, cut the wire, and away they go. Yeah. Right. That's going to be a personal choice for you in your situation. Yeah. Personally, not a huge fan of them, but up to you if it's something that's going to make you feel comfortable.
It depends on where you are, and I mean, if you're in a heavily populated area and somebody's going to hear the alarm, your neighbor's going to hear the siren going off, doing whatever. Okay. But if you're out in the country and you don't have a close neighbor, and let's call a spade, law enforcement's response time, that person's going to be in your house, take what they want and gone before law enforcement gets there. So
have tea and cookies for them and just leave the car. Or no, that's for your car, not the
I'm not saying they're a bad thing. They're a good thing, I think, in certain situations. So Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Tom just says, "What about a dog?" You must have missed our little chat about that, Tom. 100%.
Yeah,
having a dog.
dogs.
Yep.
It can be annoying. I've seen the dog in the backyard trying to figure out, huffing puffing inside, like, oh, you got to go outside, and they're making signs to go outside, and then they're just standing off in the distance, staring. It's like, okay, you said you wanted to go pee or whatever, get them back in the house, and then 5 minutes later you hear some coyotes howling, and it's just like, oh, so they hear a lot better than us. So it can be annoying depending where you live, and especially if you just get a dog, they got to get used to, they got to learn when was the last time you stayed in a hotel room and all those creaks and cracks, and you kind of get on a bit of suspense. So it can be the same, and they'll feel the energy off you just as much. So if you're hyper excited, the dog's kind of sitting there like, oh, I heard a bird chirp. It was 3 kilometers away, but I heard it, and you're on edge. So now, yeah. So like there is that with it, but yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I don't trust. I've watched too many Criminal Mind episodes, I think, to have someone trust keeping my house with all these fucking cameras around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just
so.
me.
Kyle in the live chat has just solved our entire security issues. He says, just lay on the couch naked all day. That sight'll scare anyone away. So I'll just bring this episode of Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end.
Well, I go lie down naked on my couch.
I go lie down naked on my couch. Yep. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Make sure you turn your camera off for a spear. That is something none of us want to see.
Only
for $6 a month, you can get it. For $3, I won't send it to you.
All right.
So yeah, someone did mention that. Who was it? Joel. He set up Lorx cameras for a customer, and he was able to black out the neighbor's windows, as in like a software overlay, and he could block stuff out. So that's way beyond anything I can do other than going and taking a Sharpie to the neighbor's window. So I'm sure that's probably doable via YouTube or knowing someone.
That's a whole other set of laws.
Right. So, if you do your due diligence, go check with your municipality, even a local cop that's on a break sitting somewhere or whatever, and just be like, hey, like, I want to do this. I want to make sure you're not going to come knock on my door for something. Most of them would probably appreciate that, or don't know, and at least be able to send you in the right direction and get in touch with the right people to get all the info that, oh, you can do that. Like, yeah, 100%. Then you're good. You're not really, nothing with your neighbor's house, or, just don't have neighbors.
That's the ultimate answer right there. Just don't have neighbors.
Yeah, just don't have neighbors.
Oh. Touching on lighting, and we've kind of touched on landscaping already a touch, but outdoor lighting. Right. Yeah. So in the evening time, and again, there's going to be mixed views on this of is lighting good, is lighting bad, which is better. If you can throw up a couple of motion activated lights, I know that's kind of old school, but kind of helps at least alert you too. If you're sitting in the house and all of a sudden a light goes on in the backyard, something's moved out there. You can go check it out, right? And hopefully if somebody's back there doing something they shouldn't be, they're going to move along because they think either A, you've turned the light on, or B, now I'm lit up, I should probably get out of here, right? Yeah, can't hurt to have. And if you got a dog, it helps you put them out at night.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, they are dirt cheap. We bought, I think it was a 4-pack of like solar LED motion lights, I want to say 3 years ago, for like $20 on Amazon. Yeah. They're still going strong. They're bright. Put them somewhere. Dog walks down the stairs. It turns on. They can go in the backyard. I don't have to stand there because their light's not that great, or I don't have to have a flashlight and accidentally hit the neighbor's house or whatever. So just angle them away from people's house. They light up your backyard if you're letting the dog out, or just lets you know, hopefully it doesn't go off because your neighbor's in their backyard having a fire or a barbecue. But yeah, they are so cheap now, and they're pretty efficient, in my opinion. Solar lights, they're fantastic.
I'm a fan of motion lights.
Yeah.
I really am. Can animals set them off? Yeah, they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm a thing like Eric. You know what? That guy's gonna show up. Boom, 2 or 3 lights are gonna come on. I would like to think they're going to go, okay, I'm going to pick somewhere else to go. And
yep. And even if it's an animal, most of them probably don't want to be in the light. That now you don't have to worry about, flicking your light on, opening up the door, and, two raccoons are eating through your garbage on your deck, having that light go off as well can even let you know that if you live in an area where you're more prone to coyotes, raccoons, skunks, and all that stuff, you can kind of set those off and set that barrier before you open up the door and get skunked.
Yep. And whoops. Kyle put a comment in the live chat. He says, I have motion lights for the chicken coop synced with motion lights around the back door. So if the lights come on, I know something's out there. 100%. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point too, is you can set things up around your property. Depending on how big your property is, you can set things up to have little triggers like that alert you that something's going on around the property, right? It doesn't have to be that the light lights up where that person is. Maybe the sensor triggers away from where they are, but lights up a light where you can see when you're in the house. So now you know, okay, something back at whatever area is moving. I should probably go check it out. It all kind of depends on what your scenario is and what you kind of want set up for alerting, or you can set up multiple lights that are just going to come on and completely light the whole place up. It's
completely up to you. Another thing that's not mentioned here, and I just thought about it, so I better say it before I forget it. My old age thing. If you've got a long driveway, have a driveway sensor. I know somebody that lives well off the road, and they've got. He didn't tell me what type. I didn't go any further, but he's got a driveway sensor that I'm assuming it's infrared, and as soon as somebody breaks the beam, he gets a ding on his phone, and it also activates 2 lights beside the driveway. So.
Yeah, you can tell if someone's coming. My aunt and uncle have that, and they live fairly remote in New Brunswick. And if someone's coming up the driveway, all of a sudden there's just this chime that goes off, and they know someone's coming up, and they can glance out the window and see them come up the driveway because they live on top of that hill. And it's not bad. I mean, it's kind of useless if you can only fit a smart car in your driveway, but they're already at your front door. But it's not a bad thing depending where you are. Just if it gives you peace of mind, absolutely go for it. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money.
Yep.
It's I got a feeling it's probably a fairly cheap option. I don't think they're crazy expensive. I haven't looked into them because I specifically don't have a purpose for it. But it's out there. Anything is doable as long as you got the right amount of money.
It's true. And nothing says that driveway sensor needs to be used for a driveway.
Yeah, you can set it up in your backyard. If you've got a bunch of fields, someone can walk in your backyard. Mm-hmm. As long as it's within the parameters of that, you can have someone break that sensor in your backyard. It might say driveway, but it's not.
I'm sure they're programmable where you can switch it around or change the sound or do something. But just because it says it's a driveway sensor doesn't mean you can't repurpose it for another location.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, so we've talked about kind of security hardening things and, figuring out how to make things, difficult for people to gain access to your primary location. But what if they do gain access? Now what? Right? So having some kind of a plan in place for, okay, I'm home or I'm away, either or. I now know that somebody's in my house. Now what?
You deploy the Roomba with the Claymore.
Well, clearly, the Roomba with the Claymore in the kitchen. Yep.
Yes.
Or Colonel Mustard with the candlestick.
Yeah, that's another good one.
But it's kind of important to have that kind of plan of action already in the back of your mind. Make sure people that reside at your primary residence kind of have defined roles or are told what to do or how to act. Because the time to kind of come up with that is not the time that somebody's already gained access to your house and is rummaging through your stuff, right? We're not going to get into the nitty gritties of what it is you need to do or how you're going to do it, because there's all kinds of legalities there as well that you're going to want to figure out before you come up with a plan. But making sure that you kind of know what you're going to do and everybody has a role and a responsibility and knows what needs to be done. But as far as what actually needs to be done, we'll leave that up to the listeners to come up with their own plans after they've researched the laws and responsibilities and all that kind of fun stuff in their respective areas.
Just make sure you get your survey before you start digging.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, just saying, like, so if you're gonna do any remodeling, obviously you don't want someone to kick your front door in. But if they do get through that reinforced door, and you've determined this is the room where family members, kids or whatever go, would probably be good to do even more work on that door. If they went through all that effort to cook your front door in, and you leave the indoor frames, with those shitty screws that you can just fall over and it open. I would even say that infrastructure and doing all the security for your deadbolts and everything for your front door, and then even being at bare minimum the same as your front door, or even more inside that, if they decide that, they get winded and they kick everything in and everybody goes to this specific place and they're already exhausted and it takes the same amount of effort or more effort, would probably perturb them a lot more, for everybody's safety, specifically yours.
Yep. That's a good point. And now I know this one is going to be completely out of left field. Nobody would ever expect this to be on this podcast. Routinely checking and going over your plan and practicing it and checking any security systems that you do put in place and your equipment to make sure it's always operational, so that if it does get to the point where it has to alert you to something, or it's, doing its thing and routing people a certain way, or whatever it is you've put in place, maintaining it and regularly checking it. I know, 240 episodes and we've never talked about that before.
I mean, it's the second time we're talking about this stuff, so
I know, right? It's all new, right? It's all new.
Yeah, it's all new. Yeah, and I mean that one can get complicated, but I mean, you don't want to terrify if you have kids. You don't want to terrify them and saying the boogeyman's coming. What are you doing? But making it a game so that they understand what it is. Kind of going down that way of, not the bad guy came. It's just like, hey, I said this word. What do you do? And getting them to practice stuff without saying so much that we're doing this because someone's going to break in. Because then you start going, what'd you do today?
Imaginations will run wild.
Yeah. So, if you've got little minions in the house or little crotch monsters, get them to do, trying to figure out a way of incorporating it more as a game, or, hey, these are the rules for the game. I said this. What do? You grab this, you grab that, you go sit over there. Perfect. And then make it into like, okay, yeah, let's go have popcorn time. And then bring a bag of popcorn, turn it into something, sit down, read a book for 10 minutes, get their mind away from it being, something like, hey, let's go split a chocolate bar and talk about your day, or how'd your week go, or whatever. Do you have any, whatever. So they don't really necessarily associate it with, the bad guys are here. Will probably help you at night a little bit.
Kyle's got a good point again in the live chat. Hide and seek.
Yeah.
Perfect. What kid doesn't like to play hide and seek, right?
Yep. Until they're underneath the fucking sink drinking all the Comet.
That's not good. Yeah, no, don't. No. You should have that locked up. Come on.
Yeah, but then I can never open it.
Hey. All right. Well, I think we've touched on basic things to kind of help people get into the mindset of securing their preps and having some kind of a plan together in order to kind of security harden your primary residence. Or, like I said at the beginning, you can take these options, apply them to another location that is maybe your main bug out location, or somewhere you think you're going to go if things go south. But the whole idea was just give you some basic ideas, kind of turn your mind to, you've got all this good stuff now. You're in kind of a good space with all your preps and all your gear and all your equipment. You also have to look at the fact of securing it because people are shitty.
Yes.
Hopefully we've kind of touched on that and given people some ideas and maybe touched on a few things that you haven't thought about. But any final thoughts from the panelists?
I mean, no, it's just figure out what your most likely scenario is and tackle one thing at a time.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's lots that people are going to be upset that we didn't even touch on. But that's what we've got. Maybe we'll do an episode 3 at year or two from now.
Yeah, we'll revisit it when the Roombas come pre-installed with flame floors, and they can build a fence for you too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you just need to give them the perimeter. They can vacuum the backyard. You don't have to be outside to leave your fucking neighbors. Get your neighbors to leave you alone.
Yeah, you don't have to vacuum your front lawn anymore.
No, it's send the room out.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, how about we move into the podcast challenge? Jeff, I see you punched it in there. You want to read it?
Yeah, sure. Just do a security review of your house. Do a walk around. Have a look at, your doors, your windows. We talked about, if you've got like bushes or something out the front, maybe they're great. You don't want to be able to see the road, but then if you want neighbors to watch your place, they can't see in either. So, just do a walk around and do an assessment.
But,
all right. Upcoming events. We've got the annual Preppers Meet coming up July the 11th to the 14th, 2024. Check out the annual Preppers Meet website. You can just throw annual Preppers Meet into Google there and you'll get the website. Tickets are on sale. Great event. Lots of good presenters, good speakers, lots of really good content. Like Jeff mentioned, he's already kind of previewed one of the presentations there, and it's really, really good. So make sure you come out. New location this year. It's in Everett, Ontario, I believe it is.
Yeah, just north of Everett on Concession Road 4. Yeah,
perfect. So make sure you come out and check it out because it's totally worth the time to check out. And it's coming up quick next month because it's June already. Yeah. Where did May go?
Oh,
all right, you got a weather blur there, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll be quick with this one. So I mentioned last week that I kind of felt the severe weather was going to take a pause, and yeah, I got that one wrong. Hasn't happened. It's pretty well. I understand that storms are isolated, so you may say, "Hey, I haven't had rain in 4 days," but your neighbor 30 miles down the road, it hasn't stopped raining for 3 days. So for the most part, the storms are isolated, but they're there, and they just, the parameters are there, and it's just not going away. This has probably been one of the busier stretches of severe weather that we've had for a long time. I was going to dig into some stats today, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to do that, but hopefully I'll do that for the next one. Almost daily there's a slight to enhanced risk of severe storms, especially areas, the prone areas, North Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, those places. Like I say, they're pretty well in a warning every day. For us locally, Ontario, we could see some weather Tuesday, Wednesday, but at this point, I don't think the storms are going to reach severe limits. We are technically in hurricane season now. As of January 1st was the start of hurricane season. I'm thinking, as I said in my last episode, I kind of gave my projections. I think it's going to be pretty active, and I think we'll see our first named storm sometime in the middle of the month.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, you wouldn't be a true weather nerd if you didn't get things wrong every once in a while.
That is true.
All right. Well, with that, I'll bring episode number 240 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or really your favorite podcast app. I'm pretty sure we're out on all of them by now. Please do submit a review on any of those locations. It does help us out and, of course, encourages the algorithm to push the podcast up higher so other people can find us.
And we do record these shows live on YouTube and the Book of Faces. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we are going live. If anybody wants to reach out to me for anything, you can reach me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
You can find me at Off the Wall Customizing for the best, the most inappropriate shirts ever. Off the wall customizing at Gmail. I kind of went back on the Discord and then just cleared all the notifications because like everything had like 75 messages, and I've been doing my due diligence on trying to stay on top of it. So I'm slowly getting caught up. Or you can find me on Monday nights on YouTube's for the other CPP Canadian Patriot podcast at 9:00.
Awesome. Check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. You get me there on the live chat, or you can flip an email to feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Well, thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.